In the summer of 1979, a real estate agent arrived at a house on Maple Drive in Haverford, Pennsylvania, to prepare it for sale. The house had been vacant for 3 months. The previous owners, an elderly couple named Walter and Constance Brennan, had both passed away within weeks of each other earlier that year. Their children had hired the agent to handle the estate. The agent was given a set of keys and instructions to assess the property and arrange for any necessary repairs before listing. The house was a two-story colonial built in 1948. White siding, black shutters, a small front lawn, a driveway leading to a detached garage. It was located on a quiet street in a residential neighborhood. The homes on either side were similar in style and age. The area was considered safe and family-oriented. Nothing about the exterior of the house suggested anything unusual. The agent entered through the front door. The interior was neat. The furniture was old but well-maintained. The walls were painted in muted colors. Family photographs lined the hallway. The kitchen was dated but clean. The living room contained a sofa, 2 chairs, and a television. Upstairs, there were 3 bedrooms and a bathroom. Everything appeared ordinary. The agent made notes and took measurements. She walked through each room. She opened closets and checked windows. She found no significant issues. At the back of the kitchen, there was a door. The agent tried the handle. It was locked. She checked the set of keys she had been given. None of them fit. She assumed the door led to the basement. She made a note to ask the family about the key. She continued her inspection. Before leaving, she called the Brennan children to report her findings. She mentioned the locked door. One of the daughters, a woman named Patricia, paused. She said the basement had been closed for as long as she could remember. She said her father had told them it was unsafe. She said there had been moisture problems. She said the door had been locked since she was a child. The agent asked if Patricia wanted her to force the door open to inspect the basement. Patricia hesitated. She said she would discuss it with her siblings and call back. 2 days later, Patricia called. She said the family had decided the basement should be inspected before the house was sold. She said they did not have a key. She said the agent should hire a locksmith. The agent arranged for a locksmith to meet her at the house the following afternoon. When the locksmith arrived, he examined the door. The lock was old. He said it would be easy to open. He worked for several minutes. The lock turned. The door opened. The smell was immediate. It was strong, unpleasant. The agent stepped back. The locksmith covered his nose. The agent asked if he could identify the smell. He said it was organic. He said it smelled like decay. The agent turned on the light switch next to the door. Nothing happened. The locksmith shone a flashlight down the stairs. The stairs were wooden, steep. They descended into darkness. The agent said she would call the family before proceeding. The locksmith said he would wait outside. Patricia Brennan arrived at the house 2 hours later with her brother Michael. Neither had been inside the house since their father's funeral. Both appeared nervous. The agent explained what had been found. Patricia said she did not remember ever going into the basement as a child. Michael said the same. He said their father had always told them the stairs were rotted and the basement was full of mold. He said they had been instructed never to open the door. Patricia said she had asked about it once when she was a teenager. She said her mother had become upset. She said her mother told her it was not her concern. She said she never asked again. The agent suggested they call the police. Patricia asked why. The agent said the smell suggested something might be wrong. Michael said it was probably just old pipes or standing water. He said there was no reason to involve the authorities. He said they should go down and see for themselves. The agent said she did not think that was wise. Patricia agreed. She said they should call someone. Michael reluctantly agreed. Two officers arrived within the hour. The agent explained the situation. The officers put on gloves and masks. They descended the stairs with flashlights. The agent, Patricia, and Michael waited in the kitchen. The officers were downstairs for approximately 10 minutes. When they returned, one of them asked to use the telephone. He called the station. He requested additional units and a detective. He did not provide details. He asked everyone to wait outside. Within 2 hours, the house was cordoned off. Investigators arrived, photographers arrived, a medical examiner arrived. The street filled with vehicles, neighbors gathered on their lawns. No one was allowed inside. Patricia and Michael were asked to wait in a police car. The agent was asked to remain available for questioning. The investigation continued into the evening. Lights were set up inside the house. Officers moved in and out. No information was released. The following day, a brief statement was issued. Human remains had been found in the basement. The number of individuals had not yet been determined. The investigation was ongoing. The Brennan family was cooperating. No arrests had been made. Further details would be provided when available. The house on Maple Drive had been purchased by Walter and Constance Brennan in 1951. Walter Brennan was 32 years old at the time. Constance was 29. They had been married for 4 years. They had one child, a daughter named Patricia, who was 2 years old. Walter worked as an accountant for a manufacturing company in Philadelphia. Constance did not work outside the home. They were described by neighbors as quiet and polite. They attended church irregularly. They did not host gatherings. They kept their lawn tidy. They raised no concerns. Over the years, the Brennans had 3 more children. Michael was born in 1953. Ellen was born in 1956. David was born in 1959. The children attended the local public school. They played in the yard. They rode bicycles on the street. They were described as well-behaved. Teachers who remembered them said they were quiet and respectful. They did not cause trouble. They did not stand out. Neighbors who lived on Maple Drive during the 1950s and 1960s later stated that the Brennan family seemed ordinary. One neighbor, a woman named Dorothy Klein, said she had lived next door to the Brennans for 20 years. She said Constance occasionally borrowed kitchen items. She said they exchanged pleasantries, but never became close. She said the Brennan children sometimes played with her own children, but only in the yard. She said they were never invited inside the Brennan house. She said she had been inside only once, in 1955, when Constance had invited her in for coffee. She said the house had been clean and sparsely furnished. She said she did not remember seeing a door to the basement. Another neighbor, a man named Richard Holt, said he had helped Walter Brennan carry furniture into the house in 1957. He said Walter had thanked him but had not offered him a drink or invited him to stay. He said Walter had seemed eager for him to leave. Richard Holt said he had asked Walter if he needed help with anything else. Walter had said no. Richard Holt said he never went inside the house again. Several neighbors reported seeing deliveries to the Brennan house late at night. One woman, whose name was not released, said she had insomnia and often looked out a window in the early morning hours. She said she saw a truck pull into the Brennan driveway on multiple occasions between 1962 and 1968. She said the truck had no markings. She said Walter Brennan would come out and speak to the driver. She said they would unload boxes and carry them into the house through the side door. She said the deliveries usually occurred between 2 and 4 in the morning. She said she assumed it was related to Walter's work. She said she never mentioned it to anyone. Another neighbor said he had smelled something unpleasant coming from the direction of the Brennan house in the mid-1960s. He said it was particularly strong in the summer. He said it smelled like spoiled meat. He said he assumed it was a problem with the sewer. He said he never asked the Brennans about it. He said the smell would come and go. He said it eventually stopped. The Brennan children were interviewed separately. Patricia, the eldest, said she had no memory of the basement door ever being open. She said her father had always referred to it as the bad room. She said he had told them the floor was unsafe and the air was toxic. She said they had accepted this without question. She said the door had a lock on it for as long as she could remember. She said her father kept the key on a chain around his neck. She said she never saw him go down there. She said she never heard any sounds coming from behind the door. Michael, the second child, said he had once tried to look through the keyhole when he was 8 or 9 years old. He said his father had caught him. He said his father had struck him across the face. He said his father had never hit him before or after that incident. He said his father told him if he ever tried to open the door, he would regret it. Michael said he never tried again. He said he assumed the basement was empty. He said he never questioned it. Ellen, the third child, said she had asked her mother about the basement once when she was 12. She said her mother had looked frightened. She said her mother told her never to speak of it again. Ellen said her mother had seemed genuinely afraid. She said she did not understand why. She said she never brought it up again. She said none of her siblings ever discussed it with her. David, the youngest, said he did not remember much about the house. He said he had left home at 18 and rarely returned. He said his parents had not been affectionate. He said the house had always felt cold. He said he never thought about the basement until the police called him. He said he assumed his parents had kept junk down there. He said he was wrong. The investigation of the basement took 3 weeks. The space was approximately 40 feet long and 20 feet wide. The ceiling was low. The floor was concrete. There were no windows. The only entrance was the staircase from the kitchen. The room was not finished. The walls were bare concrete blocks. There was no insulation, no ventilation system. The air was stagnant. In the center of the basement, investigators found a large wooden cabinet. The cabinet was locked. Inside, they found remains. The remains were wrapped in cloth and plastic. They were stacked in layers. The condition of the remains made identification difficult. Some had been there for decades. Over the course of the investigation, evidence of 6 individuals was recovered. The remains were sent to the medical examiner for analysis. In addition to the cabinet, investigators found shelves along one wall. The shelves contained jars. The jars were labeled with dates and numbers. The contents of the jars were later identified as biological material. No further details were released. In the corner of the room, they found a workbench. The workbench contained tools, knives, saws, surgical instruments. The tools showed signs of repeated use and cleaning. On another wall, they found a calendar. The calendar was from 1968. Certain dates were marked with small notations. The notations were not explained in the public record. Investigators also found a notebook. The notebook contained entries written in neat handwriting. The entries included descriptions, dates, and measurements. The notebook was taken as evidence. Its contents were not made public. Walter Brennan's employment records were reviewed. He had worked for the same company from 1949 until his retirement in 1975. His work was described as satisfactory. He had no disciplinary actions. He had received regular raises. He had been well regarded by his colleagues. None of them reported anything unusual about his behavior. He arrived on time. He completed his work. He did not socialize after hours. He was polite but distant. Constance Brennan had no employment history after her marriage. She had worked briefly as a secretary before having children. After Patricia was born, she stayed home. Neighbors described her as reserved. She did not participate in neighborhood events. She did not join clubs or organizations. She shopped for groceries once a week. She attended parent-teacher conferences. She kept the house clean. She did not invite people over. Investigators searched for missing persons reports that might correspond to the remains found in the basement. They reviewed records from the 1950s through the 1970s. They found three possible matches. One was a young man named Thomas Reed, age 24, who had been reported missing in 1961. He had been traveling through Pennsylvania looking for work. His family had not heard from him after he called from a payphone in Philadelphia. His description matched one set of remains. Another possible match was a woman named Sandra Epps, age 31, who had disappeared in 1965. She had been living in a boarding house in nearby Chester. She had told her landlord she was going to visit a friend. She never returned. Her belongings were left in her room. Her case had been classified as a missing person. No further investigation had been conducted. The third possible match was a man named Leonard Voss, age 29, who had vanished in 1969. He had been working as a delivery man. His truck had been found abandoned on the side of a road. He had not been seen since. His family had offered a reward for information. No credible leads were found. The other three individuals were never identified. They had no identification. Their descriptions did not match any missing persons reports. Investigators believed they may have been transients or individuals who were never reported missing. Their remains suggested they had been deceased for varying lengths of time. One set of remains appeared to date back to the early 1950s. The others were from the 1960s and early 1970s. The medical examiner determined that the cause of death for several of the victims was trauma consistent with blunt force or sharp instruments. The exact cause could not be determined for all remains due to their condition. There was no evidence of natural death. The examiner concluded that the deaths were homicides. Because Walter and Constance Brennan were both deceased, no charges could be filed. The case was classified as closed. The investigation report was filed. A summary was released to the public. It confirmed that 6 individuals had been found in the basement of the Brennan home. It stated that the deaths occurred over a period of more than 2 decades. It stated that Walter and Constance Brennan were believed to be responsible. It did not speculate on motive. It did not explain how the victims had been brought to the house. It did not explain why the killings had stopped. The Brennan children were not charged with any crime. They stated they had no knowledge of what had occurred in the basement. They stated they had been kept away from that part of the house. They stated they had trusted their parents. Investigators found no evidence to contradict their statements. Neighbors confirmed that the children had been raised in strict and isolated conditions. No evidence suggested they had participated in or witnessed the killings. Several aspects of the case remained unexplained. It is not known how Walter and Constance Brennan selected their victims. There was no clear pattern in age, gender, or background. It is not known how they transported the victims to the house. It is not known whether the victims were killed in the basement or brought there after death. It is not known why the killings stopped. The last confirmed victim disappeared in 1972. Walter retired in 1975. There is no evidence of additional victims after that date. It is not known what role Constance played in the killings. The handwriting in the notebook was later identified as hers. This suggested she was involved in documenting the events. Whether she participated directly in the killings was never established. It is not known whether the couple acted out of compulsion, opportunity, or some other motive. Neither left any written explanation. Neither confessed to anyone. No evidence suggested they expressed remorse or second thoughts. The house on Maple Drive was demolished in 1980. The lot remained vacant for several years. It was eventually sold and a new house was built on the site. The new owners were aware of the property's history. They said it did not concern them. The 3 unidentified victims were buried in unmarked graves. Their names are still unknown. In the years following the discovery, some neighbors spoke to reporters. Most requested anonymity. One woman said she had always thought the Brennan family was strange. She said they never seemed happy. She said the children had always looked frightened. She said she wished she had said something. Another neighbor said he had noticed the late-night deliveries. He said he had assumed they were legitimate. He said he regretted not questioning them. A man who had been friends with Michael Brennan in high school said Michael had once mentioned that his house felt wrong. He said Michael had never elaborated. He said he had thought Michael was being dramatic. He said he now understood. Patricia Brennan gave one interview in 1981. She said she had spent her entire childhood in that house. She said she had eaten meals in the kitchen directly above the basement. She said she had done homework at the table. She said she had never known. She said she could not reconcile the parents she remembered with what had been found. She said she would never understand. She did not give another interview. The case files are stored in the county archives. Photographs and evidence from the investigation are not available to the public. Access is restricted. The notebook found in the basement was sealed by court order. Its contents have never been fully disclosed. 6 people are believed to have died in that house between the early 1950s and the early 1970s. 3 of them are still unidentified. A family lived above them for nearly 30 years. 4 children were raised in that house. They were told never to open the door. They obeyed. The case is closed.